I think ultimately as writers, we want to help sort of process this moment in time eventually. But right now, write what makes you happy.
This is an interview with writer-director Morgan Dameron about tips for writing during quarantine.
The Cinema 5D virtual show is brought to you by B&H, the professional source for all your video needs. CVP, the leading specialist in creative cine, video, and photo solutions. Sattler, set your ideas in motion. Blackmagic Design, creating amazing solutions for film, post-production, and television. And Tilta, arm your camera.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to cinema5d.com. My name is Graham Ayler-Sheldon. I am here with Morgan Dameron. I've had the good fortune of knowing Morgan for at least a couple years now. She is a writer-director. You can see her film Different Flowers on iTunes, other transactional platforms, as well as, of course, Showtime. And I wanted to talk to Morgan. I wanted to talk to you a little bit today about writing while in quarantine. How do you stay motivated? What's your process like? Do you have any tips for people out there that I'm sure are going through the same thing that you're going through right now?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me on. It's so good to see you. I think this quarantine time is really strange. And I think especially for writers and other creative people, it's our job to be vulnerable and to be open. And when there's so much going on in the world and so much stress and anxiety and hardship, that sort of gets doubly as difficult. And so sort of the first quick tip is just to be easy on yourself. I think the second thing is to be disciplined and to hold yourself accountable. And I have a hard time doing that for myself, but the way that I combat that is by forming groups. So if you have writers group, that's really a great tool, to meet virtually once a week. We have these great virtual platforms now that everyone is jumping on board with to share, get notes, share your work. And I also have a directing group. So with that, we're talking about projects that are coming up and brainstorming, how are we going to stay creative during this time? There's a great there's contests that are going on online. I saw Powder Cake just posted one, and USC's doing one as well, using Zoom for storytelling. There's, opportunities here that we can jump onto. And really, so the good side of those contests is that it gives you a deadline. And deadlines are really useful when you're trying to navigate sort of this endless void of time.
Right.
Of
course. So it's about accountability, but it's also about not putting the pressure on yourself to write the next great American novel.
Exactly. Sometimes it helps to also just go back to the craft. So if you're feeling really uninspired or you've hit a wall, revisit some of those tools that maybe helped you get started in the first place, whether they're screenwriting books or podcasts or interviews with other writers. Really sort of share. It's almost like you're sharing in this experience with other writers, and tapping into that network can really help sort of remotivate you and get you going again.
Yeah, well, can you name some of those specific resources that you were alluding to? What are some of the things that you're reading, that you're listening to stay motivated and into screenwriting right now?
Absolutely. Well, I'm actually teaching during this break, so that's been really inspiring to have young writers that are sort of embarking on their first screenplays, to guide them through that process and, sort of be inspired by their passion and be reignited by that. I really love the Writers Roundtable podcast. I also love, Script Notes, of course, is great. And there's just endless resources online now. No Film School sort of has an endless database of worksheets and articles and interviews. There's just sort of a plethora of opportunities to dive back in. But in terms of books, I've been recently rereading Screenwriting is Rewriting by Jacobs Jr., which is a USC professor, and really sort of getting back into Robert McKee's story, which is largely considered quite dense and difficult to get through, but also really helpful. So, I have sort of a whole shelf of filmmaking books that in times of trouble, it really helps to kind of revisit your old friends.
Nice. Yeah, maybe now is the time to pick up Hero of a Thousand Faces or the Odyssey or, Iliad and get really dive
Yeah,
into
I
those
mean,
books.
Aristotle's Poetics, it's a short read and it gets you right back into the basics,
So Morgan, what does your typical day look like right now?
Sure. I start every day by getting outside and walking my dog, which I think is really important, whether or not you have a wonderful pet, to get out and get some air and let your brain process. And I love to write in the morning. So then I get to the desk and make a cup of coffee. And by desk, I mean the table in my kitchen because my fiance's in the other room. We're in a 1-bedroom apartment. And you have to create some distance. I think that's really important when you have other people in your living situation to establish a place where you can go. It's like Virginia Woolf said, it's a room of one's own. You need a place to go and be creative and write and focus. And these days I'm having a harder time focusing, as I think we all are.
Yeah,
And
of course.
yeah, oh my gosh. One of the ways that I've tried to combat that is with an app called Forest, which is kind of based on the Pomodoro method. You can set a timer on your phone and it not only then breaks the day up into chunks of time where you can say, okay, for the next 25 minutes, I'm really going to focus on this scene or this page or this sequence. And then you get a 5-minute break and then you do it again. And the great thing about the Forest app is that it plants trees. So once you hit a certain amount of minutes focused, it plants trees where they're needed. So you sort of have double incentive to get your work done.
Very cool. Well, I've not heard of that app. I need to try it out. And I love, the idea that you say your significant other to your partner, you say, look, this is my writing time. Leave me the space for a little bit. I still love you, but give me a little bit of time. I think, yeah, that's very important, I think.
It's definitely hard to do, but it's important.
Yeah. Is now the time to write a pandemic script?
I don't think so. I think ultimately as writers, we want to help sort of process this moment in time eventually. But right now, write what makes you happy. The most important thing in this moment is to follow your passion. And if your passion is a COVID story, sure, that's important to record. I think it's important to take stock of how you're feeling. Maybe it's more journaling in this time. Maybe it's more of like letters to yourself. But in terms of scripts, I've definitely been leaning more to genre, more to comedy, finding sort of escape methods through writing. And that doesn't mean you can't tackle big issues. It doesn't mean that you can't sort of filter, what you want to say about this moment in time through your work. But I think people are going to want to be entertained. So you want to do that to the best of your ability.
Yeah. And I mean, is it about sort of setting yourself up for success when one day this does end, for you at least?
Absolutely. What is everyone doing during this time? They're binge watching television and movies. We just made it all the way through the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe. So I think you have a real, there's a hunger for what we do. And so it's really important to be ready when the floodgates do open again and have material ready to show for it.
Yeah,
Especially as a writer, your strongest strength is your script.
Yeah, it's been so hard for me personally not to be called an essential employee. I mean, of course, there's many essential employees out there doing wonderful things, but look, everyone's binging streaming services right now. It feels pretty darn essential. I mean, the arts feel, if anything, more essential than ever before, right?
I completely agree. I'm so grateful to all of the people that are out on the front lines fighting this pandemic. But at the same time, the arts are incredibly important. What is the way that you're going to unwind after that really stressful shift at the hospital? Maybe you put on a TV show that you love. I know The Office got me through the first week by far.
Well, Morgan, thank you so much. I think these tips will be extremely valuable for people in our profession going through similar things right now. I really appreciate it. Again, everyone, you can check out Morgan Dameron's last film, different flowers, available pretty much everywhere. And you're in pre-production on another movie too, and I hope someday you'll be able to come back and we can talk a little bit about that too.
Thank you. I look forward to it. Happy writing, everyone.